So we have left Manitoulin Island. We went across the swing bridge in Little Current. Algoma Eastern Railway, built in 1913, was initially for the train. They wanted to leave it open because Lake Huron used to have a lot of shipping routes, like shipping routes all over the place. You get a ferry from Sarnia to Sault Ste. Marie, ferries all throughout Georgian Bay, because that was back in the day, that was how they traveled, right? There were no roads. You couldn't do this. Roads didn't exist. So it was trains and boats. Same in BC, that's how everybody got around, was trains and boats. So they left the swing bridge open, but they didn't need to once the heyday of the steamship era drew to a close in like the 1920s, basically. They leave it closed now, so now it's just for, like, it wasn't for the train, and now it's just for the cars, because cars kind of replaced everything. So we are basically now in the La Cloche Mountains. These are old mountains, about 1.8 billion years ago. The Pinocchian orogeny created them. They're made of sandstone, but it's metamorphosed into white quartzite. So collisions deep in the earth kind of a thing. Lots of heat, lots of pressure. It changed the sandstone into white quartzite. So these mountains, that white rock that you see, is not actually sandstone or limestone. It's white quartzite, but it was the sandstone, but it metamorphosed. All of this land was underneath the lake on the bottom, but as the glacier retreated and the land rose up, it became exposed. The East Coast was mountainous at one point. These mountains are rounded and small because they've been eroded over many, many billions of years. The mountain range will take you all the way to Killarney Provincial Park, which is just on the other side of Georgian Bay, kind of over towards Sudbury a little bit more. But we'll be driving all the way to Sault Ste. Marie is Lake Huron. So we're still driving up Lake Huron. Lake Huron is absolutely massive. So this is it. This is Highway 17, Trans-Canada Highway. So we're now headed towards Lake Superior on the 17. We're going to be on the 17 for the rest of the trip now. This will take us up to Marathon, Ontario. We're going to stop at Bruce Mines, which is Canada's first ever copper deposit mine. It was the beginning of copper mining in all of Canada. In 1847, they found a massive deposit of copper on the northern shores of Lake Huron, and they opened up a mine. So Bruce Mines, it's named after James Bruce, who was the Governor General of Canada in the 1860s. So when you hear the Bruce Trail, the Bruce this, the Bruce that, it's basically just the name of the Governor General. There's the Simpson Shaft, which was the first mine. They've actually preserved it and kept it going. Basically, it's a museum now, and they do tours. They're only open in the summer. It's closed now because we didn't come in the summertime. It's only open from July to August. It's only like $4 though, and they take you down the shaft. And there's a few copper mines all the way up. The Lake Superior has a bunch of copper. There's gold. There's silver, uranium. Alrighty, guys. So we are in Bruce Mines here. First copper mine in Canada here. Started copper prospecting in Canada, 1847. So we're gonna go to the museum, see what we can look at. Artifacts maybe. The Bruce Mines, oh, the blue sign, nice. The original claim to the Bruce Mine location was filed in September 1846 by James Cuthbertson. It was acquired the following year by the Montreal Mining Company, and production commenced in 1847 and 48 at what became the first commercially successful copper mine in Canada. Employing skilled Cornish workers, the company operated the mine until 1865, when it was purchased by the West Canada Mining Company. That firm had leased part of the property in 1853 and opened up the nearby Wellington and Copper Bay mines. Though the Bruce Mines were among the more productive on the continent, declining profits forced them to close in 1876, and subsequent attempts to resume operations were met with limited success. So this is the shield, guys. We're back on the shield here. We've been going through the shield the whole time, but this is what the shield is here. It looks pretty, it's moss on it and everything. This is where they'd be mining, right? On the shield. Copper ore here. The Bruce Mines Museum. Copper mining began in 1846, but closed 30 years later due to floods and cave-ins. In 1915, the mines were reopened, only to close again in 1921. So that's the miners, guys. The head frame, lots of dewatering and pumps here. The museum is really about people. This photo, taken around 1900, shows the faces of the men that endured the hardship of working in the confined spaces of a hard rock mine. Like the attic for a community, this museum is a storehouse for Bruce Mine's past. Its people and the lifestyle, its events, are nuggets of life on the north shore of Algoma country, where copper lay in the rock and mining kicked off the community. There were numerous mine shafts with their tripod winches that operated here, and the population rose to over 1,500. When mining failed, farming and logging expanded. A dock behind this church location allowed coastal steamers to transport people and goods to and from the town. There's nobody here. It's all run down, man. What's going on? That sucks. Is there even anything here? Look at it on the old foundation. That's crumbling, man. Anything on this side? No. It's pretty run down. That kind of sucks. Alrighty guys, so we're just downtown in Bruce Mines, Canada's first copper mining town. It's the town here. We are about an hour, 50 minutes outside Sault Ste. Marie. Starting to get close to Lake Superior now, guys. We've finished most of Lake Huron. We're headed west, northwest. We get to Sault Ste. Marie, or the Sioux as it's known, and then we're gonna start heading up Batchewana Bay, which will be pretty nice. And then it's gonna really start. We're gonna get into the thick of it here. So this is the view on the waterfront here, Bruce Mines waterfront. I'm trying to find that mine, but everything's really poorly done here. It's not marked out. The history's really hard to kind of track. The museum's only open in the summertime. There's not much signage in BC. A lot of historic mining towns, they tend to have a lot more information and stuff available. Here, there's not all that much information available. It's just kind of like, just that one little sign there. And I don't see any artifacts in the center of town. I'm looking for the Simpson shaft and any other artifacts or relics that I can find, but they're not making it easy. I went into an antique store and tried to find, you know, any books or old mining tools or anything, but I figured all that stuff would probably be gone by now, taken up. People have already scooped that up. I'm late to the show there, but anyways, guys, it's a nice park view here, so I'm gonna see if I can keep tracking it down though. This is the bridge. This is the lighthouse, famous lighthouse, right? Very important here. Oh, free library, nice. So this is where the steamships would have come in. I was saying before, there was a huge steamship industry here. The steamships would have come right around here. They would have sailed all through the Great Lakes, guys. All the way from Lake Ontario to Lake Superior, up the lock systems in the rivers. The Welland Canal, they wouldn't go through the Niagara River, they go through the Welland Canal. But basically, the St. Lawrence Seaway, and St. Lawrence goes out to the ocean, but we're starting to get more deep into it now. These islands were caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people over the years. Most of them are uninhabited. A lot of them are small. And when you're piloting a boat, it's just not something that you want to have to deal with. It's windy, the current's moving you around, right? And you gotta look out for islands. They're not all marked. Tom Thompson paints the town. And then this is what it looks like from the shore. So the stern wheelers and the steamships would have shown up here, guys. They would have been a dock. They would have unloaded ore. They would have loaded supplies. There would have been a whole show. The train, we've been driving along the train tracks and CPR line the whole time. We're going to start getting into that more with Lake Superior and the building of the railway. Van Horn, that was his boo-boo. Like, they spent a lot more money than they probably should have building that. They're way over budget and had a lot of construction issues, logistical planning problems. But this would have been the port back in the day. It's now a marina, but back in the day, all the steamships would have gone and come out of here. Fishing, mining, logging, agriculture, lots of different things in Bruce Mines, guys. Like I said, I'm trying to find information, but they don't really catalog things that well in Ontario. Relative to BC, the state of the preservation of the history is not very good here. So I'm trying to basically just do research by just walking around the town, but they're not giving me much to work with, if I'm honest. Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, right? Part of Georgian Bay, but Lake Huron, basically. We're just weaving through the Canadian Shield. We're heading away from Sudbury, heading west towards Sault Ste. Marie, driving along the north shore of Georgian Bay / Lake Huron. And then once we get to Sault Ste. Marie, we'll be at the St. Mary's River, which is what feeds Lake Huron from Lake Superior, right? So all the water starts in Lake Superior. It takes about 191 years for the water that comes into Lake Superior to move through Lake Superior and then into St. Mary's River. And then it flows down the St. Mary's River into Lake Huron. And that takes about 92 years, right? There's lots of mills too, like Marathon. Before they had the mine in Marathon, it was a pulp mill. There was all these pulp mills. Same with Espanola. Sault Ste. Marie was huge for milling, like lots of mills. Either pulp mills or wood cutting mills. The way logging works is if the tree was above 9 inches, they'd use it for like dimensional lumber. It's not economical to cut really small trees for dimensional lumber. But what they do with the really small trees is they use it for pulp, because you still need lumber for pulp. So if you see a bunch of logging trucks carrying a whole bunch of like really small logs, that's not wood for dimensional lumber, right? Or like timber frame kind of stuff. That's all for pulp. It's called pulpwood logging. They wouldn't want to take trees that were less than 9 inches. Alrighty guys, so we're at the Agawa Canyon train tour station. Cool place, man. You can go do train tours here of Agawa Canyon. We're gonna pass up through Agawa, Lake Superior. It's a thing for sure. But anyways, we got some cars over here. This is the station, Agawa Canyon train tours. And the Algoma Central Railway used to run out of here. The old cars, nice. No engines though, but that's okay. Algoma Central Railway. Lots of industry here, guys. Sault Ste. Marie. Shipping hub for the Great Lakes. Lake Superior up in the north, and Lake Huron to the south. And then you've got the Soo Locks. So Duluth, Thunder Bay, all of the main ports in Lake Superior, those would be the two big ones, will sail through Lake Superior, and then they'll come to Sault Ste. Marie, where they'll unload, load. There's lots of mills here. Major industrial hub, guys. Sault Ste. Marie is awesome. And then they go through the Soo Locks, 22 feet, 23 feet, I think. A foot drop down to Lake Huron. And then they have to travel across Lake Huron, basically get to Lake Erie, right through St. Clair River, Detroit River, Lake St. Clair and everything. But this is the old train track. You can see if we got flare stack booming off in the distance there too. This is the old district. We're in the old district now. So there's all these old stone buildings, and there's power stations here. It's booming. It's nice to see. It's nice to see towns, cities doing well. Algoma Central Railway. Oh, nice. They got the logo. Perfect. Look at that, guys. The old logo, eh? Algoma Central Railway. Oh, look at the old clock. The old Sault Ste. Marie clock. Nice. The Canal District. Look at the old stone buildings, though. I like the architecture. Real cool. Sault Ste. Marie has a lot of nice old buildings. Or it was a city before a lot of other places, right? And especially back in the logging days, fishing days, and mining too. And even a little bit of mining to this day, even. The Hemlo and all that. It was a big hub, guys. This is a special place. You can see we got gear, a good old gear wheel. We like these on the channel. See the teeth there. All these old buildings. This old building here though, just in the Canal District right now, walking through a field.
can see all the factories. That's the bridge to the States, guys. It's a beautiful bridge. Yeah, you drive across that and you end up in Michigan there. Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Very similar to Niagara Falls. They both share the same name, but one is on the American side and one is on the Canadian side. Oh, there's the flare stack. Right, lots of industry. Working man town, heavy industry. And then they've got the shipping through the canals. These old buildings though. You can see all the factories, the flare stack there. This building is huge. Look at the old stonework too. It's absolutely beautiful. Seen better days though, like a lot of things in life. It's hard to preserve this stuff, man. If one thing I've learned about doing history in BC and Ontario and Quebec is it's important, guys, to preserve what you have before it's gone. Because once it's gone, it's really hard to bring back, and recreating it is just, it's not the same. These old buildings, you know, information, education and all that about all these old things and history and what happened. It's super important because without it, we don't know anything about where we came from. Especially little cities like Sault Ste. Marie, Wawa. It's not really heavily traveled. It's nice here, guys. Alrighty, so we're on the 17 northbound, headed towards Marathon. We're at Lake Superior now. This is a very, very interesting road. There's a lot of stuff here. There's railways going on, the CPR railway. This railway construction up past Marathon near Schreiber, that was the hardest section of the railway to build in this part because they wanted to complete the railway line from Montreal to Winnipeg so they could start shipping freight and stuff. But the problem is this particular chunk in Lake Superior, I think it cost them $700,000 a kilometer in like the 1800s. So obscene amount of money went into getting the railway through, but they had to get the railway through because it was part of the agreement for BC and a bunch of the Western territories to join Confederation. They wanted a railway. BC said, like, we won't join Canada unless you build a railway and you connect us with the rest of Canada, right? So then trade and all this other stuff could happen. There's that. Lake Superior is one of the best places in the world for fishing. They've got Atlantic salmon, bass, walleye, pike, over 80 species of fish. They've had sea lamprey infestations with parasites, but trout have kind of died off in the lake since then. There's all these old fishing depots, so we're going to pass Quebec Harbor, Montreal Harbor, Pocassaw Depot, Michipicoten Island. These were all fishing depots where they would pack and store the fish, and the railway near Schreiber, they offload ice and fish and coal and wood. Also lots of logging going on here. Up near Marathon, we've got the Hemlo, which is a massively, massively big gold mine. $2 billion worth of gold. Basically, Marathon was just a small little pulp mill town until they discovered the Hemlo. And this whole region has been heavily staked and prospected ever since the Bruce Mines copper discovery. And then they discovered a pure nugget of copper as well, like a pure boulder of copper in Lake Superior. They started prospecting the area heavily, and there was issues with the indigenous, and there was raids on the mining camps. Very similar to what happened in BC in some parts, but there was a lot of prospecting, a lot of staking going on in the area. And so the weird thing about the Hemlo was that it was everything around it had been staked, and there were these two prospectors, Don McKinnon and John Larch, who were convinced that there was a fortune to be made up in Lake Superior somewhere, and that there was a gold mine that they could find and like one day, like, you know, make it prosperous. They teamed up with a geologist, David Bell, who had an idea about Lake Superior is the cradle of the planet geologically. The mountains that this rock is composed of are 2 million years old. Is some of the oldest rock you can find anywhere in the world. But it was all volcanic. These used to be all massive volcanoes, and it would be bigger than the Rockies, guys. So like I said, BC is a very young place, which is why it looks the way it does. This is a very old place, but it still has the mountains because the shield is so hard and it was so big when it was around, that it's taken that long for it to become like this. But basically, the geologist David Bell and these two prospectors, they had an idea that there was gold to be found at the Hemlo. So they spent years prospecting up and down, and what it ended up happening was they found it right next to the side of the highway. And so You hear me talk about, oh, they prospect the side of the highway, look at the side of the highway, go look at rock piles. The guys that are building the road, they're not geologists, they're probably not even miners. You're just told to blast through a rock outcrop on the side of a mountain. You drill and you blast, and then you remove the rock and you dump it to the side of the road. You're not looking for gold veins, and even if you were, you have to have specific knowledge that allows you to figure out what you're looking at. Just because there's a quartz vein doesn't mean it has gold in it. If it's bull quartz, which is just white quartz, that's no good. You want to have iron, pyrite, heavy metals, black sand in some places if you're doing placer mining. These guys found a gold mine at the side of the highway. Literally, like the side of the road. You drive past the Hemlo, it's like 100 feet off in the side of the highway. And it ended up being a $2 billion gold mine. But the thing is that everybody thought they were insane. And they're like, this has all been staked. This has all been prospected. There's no way. So they contacted this stockbroker in Vancouver because they needed risk money. Because basically, like, nobody was willing to give them money for their prospecting venture because they didn't believe them. But this guy in Vancouver who had made his money up in northern BC, he was a mine promoter and a stockbroker, massive guy in the stock market. His name was Murray Pesum. He gave them the money because he saw the vision. The four of them, Murray Pesum, David Bell, John Larch, and Don McKinnon, went out and staked the Hemlo, found it. This was in the early 80s too, late 70s, early 80s. And when the Hemlo broke, like when everybody on Lake Superior, like near, found out about the Hemlo and the fact that these guys had actually like found gold, it changed everything. Overnight, the Toronto stock market and the Vancouver stock market were overrun. People were buying and selling like crazy because the economy changes, right? And literally overnight, Marathon it was a small little pulp mill town, logging pulp mill town on the shore of Lake Superior. And overnight, it transformed into a mining epicenter. The Hemlo is right beside Marathon, and Barrick Gold is also near there. And they still have the pulp mill there, but the discovery of gold on such a big scale as the Hemlo transformed the town of Marathon. And it's like I've always said, guys, like, people don't just settle in random places for no reason. Like, if there's no work, whether it be fishing, agriculture, farming, administrative work, people leave. That's why we have ghost towns, because places serve their purposes for a certain amount of time and then they don't have a purpose anymore and they're gone. But Marathon transformed itself overnight into an actual town of quite a substantial size with quite a substantial amount of stuff. And it's the same thing happened with Wawa. The Helen mine there, like all up the shores of Lake Superior, there's gold, silver, copper, uranium. Up near Thunder Bay, there's Silver Islet. They hired a whole bunch of Cornish miners to mine an island and build like breakwaters, and it didn't go very well, but they tried really hard to extract the silver, and they sunk shafts 1,200 feet under Lake Superior in this island, this outcrop of this island, to try and get silver. Like there's old abandoned gold mines. Like if you sail your boat along the coast of Lake Superior, which a few people have done, it'll take you like a month, 2 months, sail the whole coastline of Lake Superior, and you'll see all these old abandoned gold mines, old tunnels, caves. Lake Superior has a very, very rich history. Shipping, we're passing through the Edmund Fitzgerald wreck. The Edmund Fitzgerald wrecked right around Whitefish Bay. We're pretty close to Whitefish Bay right now, so the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, various other ships. Lake Superior is such a big lake that it will generate its own weather systems. So just because the weather's nice in, let's say Sudbury or Espanola, because of Lake Superior's vast size, it will literally just create its own weather systems at will. So the fact that we are here and the sun is shining and it's blue sky, and then Lake Superior in November becomes really nasty and they get the November storms. All the air comes up from the flats like Kansas, Wisconsin, Oklahoma and stuff. All that air comes flying up, comes into Lake Superior and causes really, really intense storms. And it's partly what did the Edmund Fitzgerald in. And they don't actually know how that ship sank. There's various theories. Guys have built models, and some guys have written, a series of books on it. There's tons and tons of information on the Edmund Fitzgerald. There's theories as to maybe it broke on the surface in a wave, got sheared in half. There's a bunch of museums in the States that you can go to because it was an American vessel. Because the Edmund Fitzgerald was similar to the Titanic. It was a ship that was thought to, at the time, be unsinkable. Lake Superior proved everybody wrong. There's a reason they call it Lake Superior. Everything about it is superior to all the other of the lakes. It's the greatest of the Great Lakes. And it's the largest lake by surface area in the world. the largest freshwater lake by surface area, has an average depth of about 500 feet. And there's an old saying that Lake Superior never gives up her dead, because a lot of they never found anybody from the Edmund Fitzgerald. All they found was a life raft. It's like the Big Bend. It's one of those areas that there's a feeling to it. There's a specialness to it. Yeah, I'd love to hear anybody's stories on Lake Superior. So if you've got a Lake Superior story, or especially if you sailed Lake Superior, that is not something that everybody can do. So if you've sailed Lake Superior in a boat or something, or even any of the Great Lakes, Lake Huron, Erie, Ontario. We won't talk about Michigan because that's in America. But yeah, if you've sailed any of those lakes, definitely put a comment in. We are at the Agua Visitor Center. Lake Superior Provincial Park Visitor Center. Okay, so this is Lake Superior. Old railway cart. Lake Superior Weather Maker. Lake Superior affects the climate, monitoring temperatures and increasing precipitation. Close to Lake Superior, summer temperatures are cooler and winter temperatures are warmer than farther inland. These milder winters allow the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Forest to extend along the north coast, mixing with boreal forest. The lake effect gives the park some of the highest snowfalls in Ontario. On a smaller scale, the lake creates harsh conditions along the exposed coastal cliff. Here, Arctic alpine plants survive, isolated hundreds of kilometers south from their normal range. As the glaciers retreated, these plants were some of the first to grow in difficult environment of the newly exposed land. Over time, the relentless force of ice and water can transform solid rock into cobbles and sand. Long ago, glaciers ground bedrock into sand and meltwaters tumbled boulders into rounded shapes. Today, the sculpting of the shore continues as waves bore holes into soft rock and ice pressure chisels away harder rock faces. Together, ice and water grind the smooth, jagged chunks of rock, acting like a giant tumbler. Lake Superior is the biggest, the largest surface area of any lake in the world. 82,100 square kilometers, 31,700 square miles. Its shoreline totals about 4,385 kilometers, 2,726 miles. The deepest of the Great Lakes, 407 meters, 1,335 feet at its deepest point. It contains 11.4 quadrillion liters, 3 quadrillion gallons of water. Average temperature at the surface is about 4.4 degrees. It's usually warmest in August, but the average surface temperature is still only about 14.5. As a result, the movement of tectonic plates, the continent began to rip apart, creating a trough up to 30 kilometers deep. Over time, this enormous rift was filled in, first with volcanic rock from below and then with sediments from rivers. During the last million years, multiple advances of glaciers scooped out much of the sedimentary rock, and their retreat filled the resulting basin with meltwater, creating Lake Superior. Lake Superior is legendary for its November storms. Warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico collides with the cold Arctic air, creating gale force winds. As the storm crosses the lake, the relatively warm open water increases its power. Record storms have produced 100 kilometer per hour winds and 8 meter, 26 foot high waves. Ships face greater peril when the Witch of November comes stealing. The road through the park, Highway 17, was the last link in completing the Trans-Canada Highway. The steep hills, solid rock faces, and many rivers and lakes and swamps proved extremely challenging to the engineers. Full-scale construction between Montreal River Harbor and Wawa began in 1957, and the completed road was opened in September 1960. Before the road, most visitors to Agua Bay had been adventurers that came by boat or rail to stay at remote lodges. Highway 17 opened the wilderness to campers and tourists who arrived comfortably and quickly by car. In the 30s and 40s, work on the highway progressed very slowly. These men worked on the project in the Depression, when it was used to provide jobs for the unemployed. Tobacco twist, trade silver, metal tools, tinware. Gargantua, one of the few natural harbors along the shore, Gargantua has long been a haven for mariners. That was the fishing depots, guys. Late in the 19th century, a fishing village was established at Gargantua, and ever since, commercial fishermen have used the bay as a safe harbor. At night, in bad weather, a lighthouse guided boats into the harbor and served as a beacon for passing ships. Gargantua is named after a mythical giant invented by the French author Rabelais. On nearby Devil's Warehouse Island, First Nations people collected red ochre and mineral high in iron. They used this material to make paint used for pictographs at Agua Rock. Unfortunately, the original Ojibwe names of many important sites around Gargantua have been lost, and they now bear the names left by explorers and voyageurs and missionaries. Gargantua was a hamlet with a history. This cluster of buildings, while small and remote, was home to a few dozen seasonal residents employed in commercial fishing, logging, and lightkeeping. At its peak in the early 1900s, the village included a cookery and ice-making building, a twine shed, a few homes for fishermen, and a number of small cottages rented to summer tourists. That's the little village. As the glaciers melted, rushing water carved valleys and created wide floodplains from the interior of the lake. More recently, the river that created these spectacular landforms provided a water route to the backcountry. A section of the Algoma Central Railway follows the ancient route through the Agawa Canyon. Lake Superior presented many challenges to shipping. As an interest in the North's resources grew, investors identified the need for a more reliable form of transportation. The solution, the Algoma Central Railway, took 14 years to complete. The ACR was intended to bring iron ore and pulp logs from Wawa and Hearst to the mills of Sault Ste. Marie. Though the railway company was given vast areas of land along the route, few settlers claimed any of it. Nevertheless, on completion in 1914, the railway changed the travel patterns of Northern Ontario, bringing loggers, artists, and tourists to places that were previously very difficult to reach. Hearst, Ontario, down to... It's the railway line. This is Highway 17, Pancake Bay, Lake Superior Provincial Park, Whitefish Bay. That's where the Edmund Fitzgerald went down. Lake Whitefish, Lake Sturgeon, Lake Trout and Lamprey, Lake Herring. That's Lake Superior, guys. Look how beautiful it is. The islands, the hills. Absolutely gorgeous. Lake Superior's got a lot of beaches like this. There's a little trail here you can walk. So right along the Lake Superior here. So this is the visitor center, guys. It's real nice here. Really nice, Lake Superior. What a magical lake, this place. The Great Water, as they call it. Absolutely magical, guys. What a cool place. Alrighty, guys. So we're in Wawa now. We're driving up Lake Superior. We're doing the Lake Superior coastal route. You can do the circle tour of Lake Superior, but you need like a week for that. You go all the way around Lake Superior. We're in the Algoma Highlands. We've been following the coastline of Lake Superior the whole day. Pink rock, green rock, white rock. Lots of cool colors. All Canadian shield rock here. The highway's in really good shape too. Highway 17. It is the main Trans-Canada highway, but really well maintained. Lots of communities and stuff. It's good we got gas in Sault Ste. Marie because gas is insanely expensive here. But this is Wawa. Wawa is a big town. It's off the highway a bit, but we're going to be on the way to White River now. And White River is the home of Winnie the Pooh. We'll end up in Marathon tonight. So this is the shield, guys. Lake Superior rock. The Canadian shield of Lake Superior. Okay, guys. So we are on the 17. We're almost coming into White River. I must say it's like really starting to get... Ontario's usually quite populated. Like down in southern Ontario, you cannot find roads where there's virtually no cars. Even up near like Espanola, Manitoulin, still like enough traffic, you know, like a bit. As soon as we left Wawa, nothing. We probably went 10 minutes, 15 minutes without seeing a single car. There's no roads. There's no cottages here. It's just basically the Trans-Canada Highway, and mostly truckers. A lot of semi trucks, a lot of work trucks for mines, logging trucks, industry, and then obviously the good old cross Canada drive. Let's say you live in Montreal or you live in Ottawa or Toronto or anywhere in Ontario, and you want to go live out west and you got to drive. You would take this route. The only people traveling this road up this far are the truckers and people traveling to go start a new life, and the occasional boondocker or camper. You're in the thick of the boondocks here. Like there's nothing. There's no side roads. There's no gas stations. There's a sign for no gas for 150 kilometers. So we're about to come into White River, the end of the line for Via Rail, which is quite crazy to think about. This is White River. Winnie the Pooh. No traffic lights, but only 1,000 people here in White River.
Really?
Really, eh? Home of Winnie the Pooh, guys. White River. Oh, there's the post office. Okay, guys, so this is the CP rail yard in White River. You can see the Via station. Via Rail Canada. And then there's a little payphone there.
So America have got a top European football team. Always have had.
That's tailings?
Yep.
No way.
Yeah, that's all tailings. Yep. Yep. Active mining area. Stay out. Yep.
Sludge.
But this is why I wanted to come up to Marathon, was for the Hemlo. I had to get the Hemlo. Like, Was not driving up to Wawa and being like, oh no, I had to get the Hemlo. Look at this. Look at the size of the mining operation here. So this is a gold mine, guys. We're coming into the Hemlo Gold fields now. It's by the side of the highway. Barrick Gold. It's literally by the side of the highway. Everybody thought these guys were crazy when they said there was a mine at the side of the highway, and then they found it, and it turned out to be like a mother lode. $2 billion. $2 billion mine in here. The Hemlo Gold fields. Don McKinnon, John Larch, David Bell, and Murray Peasant. They were the guys that made this happen. They just found a rock outcrop, and then they drilled down into it, and they found a massive ore body. Overnight, everybody at the pulp mill had a job at the gold mine, and then they had to hire more people for the pulp mill. Barrick is huge. There's a series of gold mines here all along. We just pulled into Marathon here. We're coming down Peninsula Road. So we're gonna go into the center of town. Marathon is 3,300 people, but by Northern Canadian standards, that is a lot of people, guys. I know that may sound quite funny. This is what gold does. That's why I was saying with the stock market, it blew the stock market up because the whole town overnight morphed. It was like a tiny pulp and paper mill town. Napa Auto Parts here. Look at the cell towers right in the middle of town there. This is the big place in this part of the world. It's basically Thunder Bay, Marathon, Sault Ste. Marie. What makes Marathon really big is the fact that it's got the gold mines. Alrighty guys, so that's gonna be it. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified. And Sasquatch Prospector out.